Welcome to another episode of Liberty Basic Essentials. Today I want to show you an example of taking an old basic program and bringing it forward. The example that I've chosen I've grabbed from the rosettacode.org site. It's called Conway's Game of Life. It was implemented in Sinclair ZX81 Basic. Let me just show it to you. Okay, so I've saved it here. All right, this is old line number basic. A lot of people are familiar with this. When I was young, I wrote lots of line number basic programs, and many people did, so I thought it would be useful just to show how to change this over to a modern basic. So if you don't know what Conway's Game of Life is, um, I'm including a link down below to a short YouTube video that explains what it is, but let me just give you a quick demo. Okay, and you see these patterns cycling. This is Conway's Game of Life running. It's sort of a simulation of a hypothetical, super simple life. Uh, you could call it a game. Some people like playing with these things. Maybe in a later example, we'll show how to take this and convert it into a real graphics program with colors and things like that. So, all right, I'm going to program. I press Control Break and stop the program from running. Yes. Okay. So this program is very short. It's written in ZX81 Basic, and I had to do very little to make it work because ZX81 Basic is very close to Microsoft Basic, and Liberty Basic is also close to Microsoft Basic. The only real changes I needed to make were um, that some of the function names like RND and let me see down there. There was another one. Oh yeah, VAL value. These in Sinclair Basic don't have parentheses, so it looked like this. So that's kind of non-standard. That's not the way Microsoft Basic does functions. It just like Liberty Basic, it also uses these. Okay, and now the other thing is that when you're using arrays in Sinclair Basic with strings, there's actually the first value when you dimension the array is the number of strings in the array, and the second value is actually the length of the string. And this didn't require me to change very much code because the code was already written to deal with one character at any of these positions, so I didn't have to do very much to make it work. And the other thing is that instead of using print at, which a lot of old basics use to position the cursor on the screen, Liberty Basic uses locate, and it's in the opposite direction. So Liberty Basic likes to specify the X and the Y. So the first value positions the cursor left and right, and the second value positions the cursor up and down. So the opposite of the way that print at works in Sinclair Basic. So other than that, I really didn't need to do much of anything. It pretty much just works. So once I've got it working, then we can talk about, all right, what do we do to change this? And so the most obvious thing to do first is to get rid of all the line numbers. Okay, so if you look, you just move down here through the source code, you'll see that there are just a few places where we use line numbers. So there's a go-to here, which jumps down to here. And there's a go-to here, which jumps down to here. And there's another go-to here that jumps down to here. Right? Finally, at the bottom, we have a go-to that jumps all the way back up here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a stab at some names for these things, because what we want to do is use names instead of numbers, because numbers don't mean anything at all except that as a very vague jumping point. All right, so if we come down here, first of all, if we come all the way to the bottom and you see that we have this go to 1050, 1090. Let's just call that loop. All right, we're going to go to loop. I'm going to change this to loop. That's the way Liberty Basic does branch labels, is by taking a word and putting square braces around it. So I'm just going to go up here to 1090 and replace this number with the same name, loop. I'm just going to hit return and put some spaces in here. There's loop. Let's just format this by adding a little room. Okay, so now if I come down here and I look at this code and I say, all right, what does this do? If the string at this position is equal to a 0, then I want to come down here, and what does this do? It prints a space. It prints a blank line. Okay, there's nothing there. So I'm just going to change this to print blank. I don't need go to. That's completely optional in most basics. So if $ij is equal to a 0, then print blank. So if I come down here and I change that to print blank, okay, great. And we'll format that. Okay. Then here, what we've got is, oh, we're just going to basically print this bar here because we didn't print a blank. Okay. So in that case, we're done. So what we want to do is we just want to skip we could pick a better name than that, but that's what I'm going to use for the moment. So after this, okay, so then if we come down again further, then we say, okay, if these various conditions are true, then we want to skip over this line here. And what this line does is it sets the value for one of the cells of our simulation. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. We're not going to skip it. I mean, we're not going to set it. So we skip it instead. So we'll change this to be. See, what this does is it jumps over this to here. So what do we want to call that? We want to call that that's what we'll call it. Just copy and paste this. All right. Now, let's just make sure we don't have any more go-tos that I'm not seeing here. So, all right, we have that one, and we have that one. I think we're good. Let's just test it and make sure it still works. It does. I broke into that. Now, we don't need any of these line numbers. So hold on, I'm just going to delete all of them and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So you can see that I removed all the line numbers and I lined up the columns. Well, each line, right over the next. Another thing that you can do is just maybe insert a comment on the top like this. So Conway's Game of Life, adapted from, for example. All right. And then sometimes it's a good idea just to clean things up. Actually, to put spaces between things as well. Like, so for example, just break the program up into different sections so that visually you have a clue that, okay, something different is happening here now. Like here. Look at this. This is it's nested. Those four next loops are really deeply nested. So what you can do then is you can indent them. So inside of here, sometimes people find it very helpful to do this sort of thing. Just to visually break it up. So to say, okay, this is inside of this and this is inside of this. So when you nest things, it says, okay, inside of this loop is contained this code, and inside of this loop is contained this code. Okay, so for example, and then once again, this is less necessary for a small routine like this, but I'm just doing it for illustration purposes. Right, got more of this sort of thing here. All right. Obviously, another thing that you can do, just like I did up here, is you can put comments in various places. Now, we didn't write this code, so the variable names, for one thing, the variable names in Sinclair Basic are only allowed to be one letter, and in Modern Basic, that's just not, it's not the case. So we can change things to make them read more easily. Like, for example, if you study the code for a little bit, you kind of figure out, okay, there's stuff in here that would be better named something else. Like, for example, if you look at this letter G, when you run the program, if you look in the, I'll just do it. If you look in the corner here, you'll see that it's counting up. That's from the variable G. It seems clear to me that that means generation. Okay, so each generation is being displayed. So far, we've gone 30-something generations. So I'm just going to break. And we'll change this, okay? So we'll change this to generation. And then if we go down, okay, here, then, and you'll notice I didn't make it all caps. But, and I like to put spaces in between things a lot. Some people like that, some people don't. Now, somewhere down here, it's going to add 1 to each next generation, so we need to find that. There it is at the bottom. Generation equals generation plus 1. Okay, and it also says let in front. All right, so let is completely optional, and it just adds more for your brain to have to parse through to figure things out. If you like to use the keyword let, if you're, if you want to go old school, then of course you're free to do whatever you want. So what I think I'll do is I'm going to do a search and replace on that. So let with a space after it, and we'll just replace it with nothing. and we'll confirm. So replace let, yes, 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 yes. Just confirming to make sure it doesn't do something unexpected. So you'll notice this program is getting cleaner and cleaner. We can also change other variable names as we see fit. As we work through the code and we figure out how it works, we can change them to whatever we want. All right, so that concludes my example of converting an old line numbered basic program into Liberty Basic. And I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed this as much as I did. Take care, and see you next time.